This is the Cloud Atlas Sextet?
I doubt there's more than a handful of copies in all of North America.
But I know it. I know it.
That's it. The music from my dream.
There are whole movements I wrote imagining us meeting again and again in different lives, in different ages.
I can't explain it, but I knew when I opened that door.
A powerful deja vu ran through my bones. I heard it in a dream. It was in a nightmarish cafe. And the waitresses, they all had the same face.
No reason to hide. I know you are Sonmi 451.
Yesterday, my life was headed in one direction. Today, it is headed in another. You ever think the universe is against you? Fear, belief, love, phenomena that determine the course of our lives. These forces begin long before we are born and continue after we perish.
Our lives are not our own. We are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future.
I won't let you go again. I believe there is another world waiting for us, a better world. And I'll be waiting for you there.
Hey, Mom! Look at me! Smile!
My name is Salmon, like the fish.
Okay, shipmate, take it away.
First name, Susie.
Bye, Dad.
Bye, Susie.
You are beautiful, Susie Salmon.
I was 14 years old when I was murdered.
You're the salmon girl, right?
On December 6th, 1973.
We didn't find him, Mrs. Salmon. I'm very sorry.
Dad, she's dead, isn't she? You miss her, don't you?
She's gone.
What if she isn't? What if she's still here?
Grandma, Susie's in the in-between.
I wasn't gone. I was alive in my own perfect world. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't perfect. My murderer still haunted me.
Gentlemen, Len. Susie would never go off with a stranger. It had to be someone she knew. I've got a name for you. This is police work. This is what we do.
My father had the pieces, but he couldn't make them fit.
You have a tomb in the middle of your house.
I waited for justice, but justice did not come.
You're a salmon girl, right?
There's definitely something wrong with this guy.
Why won't you listen to him?
Because you need evidence. You need proof.
Can't you just leave it alone? Dad!
Come on, face me!
Don't be afraid.
Few know what it means to be reborn, a sensate.
A what?
You saw her, but that's just the beginning.
I can feel you. But you're not really here, are you?
You are no longer just you. You will start to feel strange things. Anger and joy and pain. Pleasure without any reason. You have 7 other selves now. You can access each other's knowledge, language, skills.
Help me.
You will be hunted. There's no more time. You need to run.
I'm losing my mind.
No, it's just expanding.
They don't tend to come out with enlightened words of wisdom. They don't tend to be little mystics. Some of them will make some philosophical statements, but what they do more is focus on events and people from near the end of the previous life. So 3/4 of them will talk about how the previous person died, and they will also talk about the people they knew at the end. So if a child is remembering the life of an adult, they'll be much more likely to talk about a spouse or children rather than talk about parents. So it seems it's as if the memory has just sort of picked up where it left off at the end of the last life. And then about 20% of the kids, most of them don't, but about 20% will talk about events between lives, between the death of the previous person and their birth. Some of them will talk about hanging around the previous family and observing things. Some will talk about the funeral that the previous person had. There's one little girl in Thailand who made a lot of statements, but one of them, she complained that her ashes had been scattered rather than buried the way that she wanted them to be. And it turned out that she had asked to have her ashes buried under the bow tree of the temple complex where she studied, but when her daughter went to bury them, the root system of the tree was so extensive that she couldn't bury them, so she scattered them instead. And then some of the kids will also talk about going to other realms like heaven, and the American kids may use the words heaven. And then some will talk about either being guided to their next parents or even choosing their next parents. And then some will talk about events occurring during the pregnancy. In the unnatural death cases, over 35% of the children will show an intense fear toward the mode of death of the previous person. So for instance, there was a little girl who basically from the time she was born, she hated being in water. And it would take 3 adults to hold her down to give her a bath. Then when she got old enough to talk, she described the life of a girl in another village who had drowned in an accident. Cross-gender behavior. About 10% of the children will talk about a past life as a member of the opposite sex. And many of those that do will show some gender confusion or gender dysphoria. The case I showed you, the experimental birthmark with the boy with the mark down the back of his neck who was thought to be his grandmother reborn, he said many times how he wanted to be a girl. And he was always dressing up in his mom's clothes and wearing her lipstick and that sort of thing. So we actually published that as a case of gender dysphoria. When we set up our website in 1998, since then we have been hearing from more and more American parents, and we hear from them all the time now. Most of them say that they had no belief in reincarnation before their kids started saying these things, and some of them were quite appalled by the idea of reincarnation. There's one mom I talked to who said she felt like she was committing a sin just to buy a book on reincarnation. But she could not ignore, in that case, she certainly could not ignore the things that her daughter was saying. And the American ones prove that this is not some cultural phenomenon that just takes place in places with a belief in reincarnation, because they take place here in a culture without a general belief and take place in families without a belief in reincarnation. So what do we make of these cases? I think with cases like this, to my way of thinking, they are too hard to ignore. And they are certainly evidence that consciousness continues on after the physical body dies. But it is worth keeping in mind that these are special cases, and they're special in the sense that intact memories have come through, and they're also special in the sense that the previous person tended to die young or die violently. So, and that the previous person came back very quickly. So it's possible that what we're seeing is simply one very end of the bell curve. And the patterns that we see may not be representative of the normal process. Now, of course, it may be that the rest of us don't necessarily come back here anyway. But even if we do, it may not be that we come back within 16 months or that sort of thing. But obviously, regardless of that, the cases do contribute significant evidence, along with other fields of evidence, that the mainstream materialist view of reality is incorrect. And it challenges us, I think, to take a different view of reality, one that I believe is consistent with quantum theory. And I'm not, that's a topic of another lecture, but I do want to quote from Max Planck, who's considered the founder of quantum theory. And he said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness." I would argue, and I do argue at the end of my book, that quantum theory has shown that the physical world is a creation of consciousness, that consciousness is what is primary, and the physical world grows out of it. If it does, then how does that work? And of course, synchronicity is really a way to try to look at all that. But the pieces all fit together to create something that was quite meaningful. Our cases seem to suggest that these are separate individuals kind of having a separate individual journey. But what I would argue instead is that the consciousness that each of us has seems to be linked to the consciousnesses that everyone has. And it may in fact be that we are all part of the same thing, that we are all individual streams of thought, but that we're all coming from one great mind. And if so, then I would say that it's worth keeping in mind that we are certainly all in this together.
It's just not needed at all.
if I could put him in front of you? The man that ruined your life. If I could guarantee that you'd get away with it, would you kill him?
Many New Yorkers are leaving the city in fear of a fifth attack by the Fizzle bomber.
Maybe he's doing the city a favor.
That kind of talk can get you in trouble.
No worse than I've already been through.
There's something this job has taught me, is that truth is stranger than fiction.
You're not talking about bartending, are you?
I'm not talking about bartending.
Follow me right in here. Here we go. Deep breath.
We're in 1963.
That's impossible.
I'm a temporal agent. We prevent crime before it takes place.
The Fizzle bomber. His next explosion will leave 11,000 dead. You can do this.
Right.
You have skills you've never had the chance to use, and I can give you that chance.
I get to be a temporal agent?
If you prove yourself.
Do I have a choice?
You always have a choice.
10, 9.
I always knew something was different about me.
6.
You're a gift given to the world through a predestination paradox. You're the only one.
You're gonna save millions of lives.
You must complete your mission. You must lay the seeds for the future.
Here you are, at the beginning of your new life. I know where I come from. Where do all you zombies come from?
You're here to create history and influence what is to come.
Time catches up with us all. The path you're on will take you to your destination.